welcome back to the channel, guys.
Welcome back. We're going to talk about biology again in this Mcat Academy section. And today's topic is the cardiovascular vascular system.
Yeah, so last video we talked about breathing, now we're going to talk about your heart, so let's get into it.
I like the little circulation of the blood through the heart thing. You know that? 2 months ago I knew this by heart. No pun intended. But okay, let me see if you ask me again.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
I messed up on the second one.
Yeah, so this is like the
So
flow through the heart, guys. So you have the right atrium, you go through the tricuspid valve, which you need to know that name of the valve, to the right
so let's
ventricle.
let's take it from the top.
Yeah. So the
Chicken
superior vena
Lisa.
cava, got
Yep,
it? That goes to the
yep,
right
got it.
atrium.
Okay.
Then the right atrium, you go through a valve called a tricuspid valve. So like from that valve,
Tricuspid.
yep, tricuspid,
Tricuspid.
tricuspid, yeah, 3 cups.
Okay.
And then
And
from
then it
there,
goes to,
the right ventricle.
okay.
So now we did the right side of the heart. Now you go to the pulmonary valve.
And the right side is as if you're wearing the heart.
Yeah.
So the left side if you're looking at the heart.
Yes.
Just anatomically. So if people
Yeah,
are
it's just a
looking into
little
this
confusing when you're
specifically.
looking at the picture.
Yeah. Hmm.
But then go from the pulmonary valve to the pulmonary artery, and
Hmm.
from there you go to the lungs. And then
Right.
a
And
pulmonary
then
vein
and then
actually
the
brings that
lungs.
back. Which
Yes.
isn't in the image there, but a pulmonary vein brings it back.
When they pick up the oxygen.
Yep. And left atrium to the left ventricle. There is a mitral valve in between them.
Yeah.
So
From the
as
left atrium and the left ventricle, there's a mitral valve.
yeah, you can see in the little image down there is actually a mitral valve. And from there you go to the aorta, and then it's the rest of the body.
Between the left ventricle goes into there's an aortic valve,
Yeah,
and then it goes into the aorta, and then from the aorta it gets uh the aorta is the bagpipes. If you
yeah,
remember the bagpipes, that's the aorta. That's how I learned. The top three little things are the bagpipes, and the superior vena cava, right next to the aorta, is what the bagpiper blows into to make the sound. And now, if you look at the bagpipes, you see how he presses the bottom, make a sound, and then he presses one hand, make a sound, and then he releases the hand, make a different sound. So that is the heart pumping. That is he's squeezing the right ventricle to build pressure in the right atrium, and there's, and then of course once he releases the hand, and all the pressure goes through the tricuspid valve into the right ventricle, and then it goes up through the passageways that we just talked about. But that's like a little cool way that I learned it. And you do have to memorize this because this is absolutely important um, to know, and the anatomical way. So I mean, it's pretty easy though. It just takes like a day, a couple hours maybe, if to memorize this.
yeah. They love asking about the valves because it's really easy to get the valve
Yeah.
names mixed up. Like the two main
Yes.
ones you have to know is the tricuspid and the mitral.
Tricuspid and then mitral. Yes.
The pulmonary valve, I don't know if
I
I
mean,
never
one is
been
a
on tested on
pulmonary,
it.
one is an aortic.
Yeah, I never been on tested on those valves before. It's mainly just tricuspid and the mitral though.
In my Yeah, that has come in a pre-test that I took. So
So yeah, that's the way through the heart. We spent a lot of time on it because that's pretty important to know. This is also important to know, like how the signals go through the heart. So
the electrical conduction.
yeah, so the pacemaker of the heart is called the SA node. It just sends the signals. That goes to the AV node where it kind of slows down the signals too for a little bit. There's like a slight pause in the AV node.
The SA node is in the right atrium, and the AB node it's in the interventricular node in the right atrium too as well.
Yeah, so SA node sends a signal, pacemaker. It goes through the AV node. And the AV node actually slows down the signal for like a split second. I don't know if they're actually going to ask that on the Mcat, but that's what happens. Goes to the bundle of His, which sends a signal down to the Purkinje fibers, which like keeps sending the signal. Do you remember that you can?
Stab a pickle.
Yes,
What is this?
yeah. So stab a big pickle is how you can
Pickle
remember
Rick.
the
Wait,
order.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So stab is SA node, A is AV node, obviously.
Mhm.
Big is bundle of His, and the Purkinje fibers is pickle.
That's cool. Stab a pickle.
No, stab a big pickle. You're not stabbing any pickle. It's a big pickle.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I'm sorry. Stab a big pickle.
Gotta get it right. So that's just a little way to remember it.
Yeah. I mean, that works. Hey, that works. That works, right?
And then you have blood pressure. So you have systole and diastole. So systole is the ventricle. What happens here is the ventricle contraction, which and the AV nodes close. Then you have diastole, which is your ventricle relaxation. The SV closes, and the blood from the atria to the ventricles happens. A normal is like 120 over 80 to like 90 over 60. So that's just numbers, general numbers that give you for the Mcat. Increase BP leads to an increase in AMP. Decrease in BP leads to an increase in aldosterone or an increase of ADH. This basically just causes you to absorb more salt, which water follows salt, so then you absorb more water, which increases your blood pressure overall. Increase in osmolarity also causes an increase in ADH. And then you have your cardiac output equation, which is CO equals your HR, and then your SV is the stroke volume. So HR is like your heart rate.
Times.
Yeah. So what's important here is knowing like what happens in each part of the thing. So systole, ventricular contractions, knowing what valves close, and then knowing like what normal BP is, what happens when blood pressure increases, what happens when blood pressure decreases, because it's important. Especially when you're getting a patient whose blood pressure drops really bad and like you're wondering what's going on. Like, why is your body not compensating by increasing aldosterone? Is there another issue there? What's going on? Anything else you want to add?
No.
Okay. So then you have blood types. I don't know what blood type I am, so
Wait, you don't?
no.
Have you never given blood?
Nope.
Oh, okay. Because that they tell you when you do.
Yeah. Important thing here is knowing that AB can only receive blood from, can only donate to AB, but AB
Yeah,
is
this took me a
also
while to learn.
the universal recipient. So AB can receive from anyone. O is a universal donor, but they can only receive from O. So that's the main things you need to know there.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, when you have the antigens produced, antibodies produced, that just makes sense. Just knowing like who can get what kind of blood though is important. So what are antigens? They're surface proteins on the red blood cells. There's also an Rh factor, so Rh positive is dominant, and Rh negative person will only create anti-Rh, and you only make antibodies after exposure to Rh positive blood. So then you have coagulation. Basically, when something happens, you get a cut or something, you're gonna get like a clot to it. So basically,
Did
prothrombin.
you coag?
Hmm.
I'm sorry.
What was your question?
No, no, no. Go on. Go on.
Oh, so basically, prothrombin turns to thrombin. Fibrinogen again gives a fibrin. And these clots are broken down by plasmin. This is a lot more complicated than this. There's like a lot more factors to go into it. When you throw warfarin into it, there's a lot of like cofactors. This is like the very, very basics you need to know for the MCAT. Anything to add on this one?
No.
Okay. Also, that the note that the pulmonary veins carry oxygen in
I
blood.
like what you had to add it to it. I
Yes,
think that I think we already know that, bro. But yeah, yeah, yes. Pulmonary veins carry oxygenated blood to the heart.
while other veins do not. So, so regular veins do not go to the heart. Do not like go. They don't bring the oxygen and blood to the heart. So just making sure people know that pulmonary versus regular veins. And so the vasculature arteries are thick. They're musculature. They're elastic. So the elasticity allows them to propel the blood forward. The arterioles are basically smaller arteries. So arteries, arterioles, capillaries, kind of like getting thinner. So capillaries are very thin, as you see, like one cell thick. But this is where like gases get like changed. So O2, CO2, waste. And then you also have veins. So then you have veins and venules. Veins are inelastic, unlike arteries, which are elastic. They can stretch a little bit, but they do not have recoil. So the surrounding muscles also help pump blood through the veins. They also have valves. So the valves prevents like backflow of the blood. That's kind of what the valves are important for. And then venules are just smaller versions of veins. Anything to add there?
No.
No? Okay. And then blood is a connective tissue. That's just some random fact that they might ask you. What type of tissue is blood? Connective tissue. So red blood cells, as most people call them, are actually called erythrocytes. These are made in the bone marrow. They have no nucleus, no mitochondria or organelles. Their main job is to carry oxygen. So they contain hemoglobin to carry O2. So hematocrit, this is a percentage of blood composed of your red blood cells. Leukocytes are your white blood cells. These are like your immune system. They're also made in the bone marrow. And then granulocytes are neutrophils, eosinophils, and basophils, or Ben. So basophils, eosinophils, and neutrophils. I remember them as Ben.
Ben.
Yeah. Yep,
That's cool.
Ben. That's the only way I can remember them. These are like a non-specific immunity inflammatory reactions. So Ben is granulocytes. Then agranulocytes are the type of these are lymphocytes. They're for a specific immunity. You have monocytes, which digest foreign matter, and these are called like macrophages. And then you have thrombocytes, or called platelets, and these just are do the coagulation. So they may have like an antiplatelet drug, which prevents like these platelets from forming a clot. And then last we have fluid balance. So hydrostatic moves fluid out of the blood vessel and into like the interstitial fluid. Where osmotic pressure is like the second pressure, and that draws water into the bloodstream. Hemoglobin carries the oxygen, and then some CO2 is also carried by the hemoglobin, but it's mostly in the bloodstream as biocarb. So, anything else, Mitchell?
No, I'll be going back to this and watching this video again for my understanding later tomorrow when I test this. But thank you so much for tuning in, guys. We'll see you in the next video.
Peace.